Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for calling on me this evening. The 6 hours that I've been waiting have truly passed in a flash. Such has been the quality of previous Maiden speakers, including the one just now from the Honourable Member for Newcastle. I'd particularly like to associate myself with the remarks made by my Honourable friend for Grantham, who's sadly no longer in the chamber, about the equalities agenda and gay rights. Right at the start, I should make a declaration, as that's what we do a lot of at the start of parliaments. Anyone hoping that I will enliven proceedings in the manner of one of my elder brothers, the former member for Henley, is likely to be disappointed. Private eye in the issue just on newsstands at the moment has helped me set expectations appropriately low. It quotes an unnamed Oxford contemporary in the first of a series it's doing on new members, and this friendly Oxford contemporary of mine says, "He could not be more different to Boris. It's as though the humour gene bypassed Joe altogether, and he inherited only the ambition gene." Well, it's an absolutely fair comment. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, I don't really apologise for the humorectomy, nor indeed for any hint of ambition that you might detect. For these are serious times, and politicians need to be ambitious when the country is in such a mess. History will not forgive us if we flannel around in the House over the next 5 years and fail to pick the economy up off the floor where it is at present. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Orpington, the constituency I'm fortunate enough to represent now, has not troubled this House with a maiden speech for 40 years. I'm tempted to give you a double helping, but time won't allow it. This lengthy interlude has arisen because my distinguished predecessor, John Horam, began his parliamentary career not in the idyllic glades of northern Kent, but in the gritty Gateshead West area of Newcastle. John Horam has the distinction, as many of you will know, of being the only member of this House to have served in all three parties. Disillusioned by Labour's leftward drift, he was originally, of course, a Labour MP in Gateshead. He dallied with the SDP in the early 80s, before eventually donning Conservative colours and becoming the MP for Orpington in 1992. By the time he came to give his maiden speech that year, he was, of course, no maiden. But as a liberal Conservative, long before the genre became fashionable, he was at least ahead of his time. That John's political journey, his odyssey in some ways, that it culminated in Orpington, of all places, is entirely appropriate. After all, it was in Down, one of the constituency's most picturesque villages, that the father of evolutionary biology propounded the earth-shaking theory of natural selection, the most important scientific breakthrough of the last 150 years. It is no surprise to me at all that the people of Orpington inspired Charles Darwin to come up with the concept of the survival of the fittest. Meet them and one sees the very best that evolution has done with Homo sapiens over the millennia. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Orpington constituency is famous for much more than the man who debunked creationism. I will not dwell too long on the Buff Orpington chicken, admired by poultry breeders for its gentle contours, colourful plumage, and succulent breast meat. Suffice it to say that they are easy layers, go broody very often, and make great mothers. Would it be too much? Would it be too much to expect the local Tesco superstore to stock it and support breeders of this fine bird? I will keep the House informed on my progress. My office called the Tesco this morning, and they do not presently stock it. If Orpington's contribution to science is beyond question, its place in the footnotes, if not the chapter headings, of British political history is no less assured. In 1954, for example, the constituency almost snuffed out the career of a young Mrs. Thatcher. Having fought unwinnable seats in neighbouring Dartford, Mrs. Thatcher sought the nomination for Orpington. In the Croft Tea Room in St Mary Cray, one of the more hard-on-its-luck areas of the constituency, you will find a fine photograph of the young Mrs. Thatcher buying her daily milk from a horse and cart. in an attempt to impress upon selectors her local credentials. She was unsuccessful. Bitterly disappointed at the way leading local Tories reckoned her candidacy incompatible with her role as mother of twins, she wrote to Central Office to inform them she was abandoning all thought of Parliament for many years. Needless to say, British politics would have been very different had she not relented. I shall not dwell on counterfactuals, but one thing is certain. Orpington would not have gone on to become the totemic seat for the Liberals that it went on to in 1962 had she become our MP. The man who defeated her for the nomination resigned unexpectedly, triggering a famous by-election. A good Balliol man by the name of Eric Lubbock, representing the Liberals, scored a historic victory, overturning a very substantial Conservative majority and chalking up a Liberal gain in an area far away from the party's traditional heartlands in the West Country and in the Celtic fringe. The birth of Orpington Man sparked a revival that marked the end of the Macmillan era and made Orpington a permanent fixture in Liberal folklore. Coming back to the present and the subject of the debate, the scale of the Conservative victory on May the 6th, with the 60% share of the vote, was a resounding endorsement of the Conservative Party's economic programme. The priority now, achieving an accelerated reduction of the £156 billion deficit, is one I wholeheartedly support, as well as the creative and compassionate ways that I know this government will use to go about this difficult task. The £6 billion of cuts already announced is barely a start in that process, and I look forward to the emergency budget on June 22nd and the public consultations over the role of the state to follow. Mr. Speaker, as someone who recently spent 4 years working in one of the fastest growing parts of Asia, with a ringside seat on the emerging economy that is India, I'm fully aware of the challenges that globalization presents to the British economy. I would like to use the time I have in Parliament to help this country and the Orpington constituency meet those challenges. Thank you.